I appreciate that you're standing there just using a piece of PVC to roll stuff out. In a world where they sell all kinds of dumbass devices, you got 23 cents worth of PVC there.
It's working really well. Actually, 98 cents.
Okay, welcome back to another Zengineering podcast. I'm Adam.
Oh, hey, everybody. I'm Brian.
What's going on? I think we did... We've started recording these out of order, so I'm going to stop trying to refer to previous podcasts. I do hope you enjoyed our episode with the guest.
That was 2 episodes ago. That was great.
That was 2 episodes ago. That was 2 episodes ago from when this was recorded, but this is a hit list episode, so I don't know when I'm going to drop it. It's just filler. Am I betraying the purity of our recording process by revealing that we put out the hit list episodes when we didn't have time to do it?
Yeah, keep that shit secret, dog.
Anyway,
I actually think our hit list episodes have been some of the best.
Yeah, I think they're fun. And the fans, believe it or not, we have fans, do appear to enjoy them as well. So, we'll keep them coming.
They keep us on topic instead of us just rambling like we just did for an hour trying to decide what topic to talk about, where we really just talked about an hour. We're like, wait, damn it,
it's actually harder to spend 45 minutes talking about a single thing competently than it is spend 5 minutes talking about 3 things.
It's really easy to talk
pretty incompetently.
Talk like you're smart about 3 things for 5 minutes. People do that everyone does that all day.
Talk like you're smart. That's what the internet is for. Okay, so first hit list item, and this is one that we agreed is sort of close to home for us, but I want to talk about the idea of default outrage on the internet.
Yeah, or just in general in life.
The guest that I just mentioned, Mike Rosolio, has been dealing with some of this nonsense because of a script that he had a big star attached to, and then the internet went crazy about the script because it includes as a topic Alzheimer's, and then that pressure caused the star to back out, and it's super disappointing. But the extent to which that's bullshit and frustrates us is not the point I want to go into. It's more the idea of, like, the internet has fallen into this rut, mostly social media, I suppose, has fallen into this rut where a thing happens, and if it's the tiniest bit sensitive to any possible group, the default position that everyone takes is outrage. How can this thing be? You can't say that. That's insensitive. That's not fair. And no one thinks before they start doing that.
That's everyone's response to everything. If that's not the thing I think, or it touches me in a funny way, I'm going to be a dick about it.
Well, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and it sounds harsh, but the only way I can think to express that as a reaction is to say that it's straight up cowardly. Like,
totally. When
outrage is your first response, it's okay if you are outraged, but think for a second about whether or not that outrage has, like, substance before you just start spouting off on the internet to where everybody can see about how outrageous this thing is. Because maybe you're wrong. Like, in this case, 24 hours after all of the outrage and after the star had backed out, the articles started coming out where decent journalists actually read the script, and they all said everyone who was outraged clearly didn't read the script.
Well, that's the problem, is that it requires effort to not just be outraged by something. People like to be emotionally charged. They like that feeling. It's kind of a drug, to be honest. Arguing is a drug for people. It is for me. I get really fired up arguing with people.
I mean, that's partially what we do here.
Right, totally. It's very powerful. And it's really easy to argue. It's really hard to have an intelligent conversation because you have to be prepared for an intelligent conversation. You have to have read a 2-hour script.
The reason that I call it cowardly is because I think it's not just about that you want to outrage starts an argument and arguments feed what you were just talking about. I don't care if people want to argue. Start fights all you want. The problem is outrage as a default position is a safe position because to not be outraged and go, oh, this is good, and then have someone educate you and have to backpedal to, hey, I stand corrected. This is actually not okay. Someone explained it to me why it's not okay. And now I'm sorry that early on I said I thought this was cool, but now I think it's not, right?
Yeah, it's a bummer that's a harder situation to get yourself out of.
That's harder to do. And so people default to just behaving like everything is outrageous and everything is racist and everything is sexist because they're afraid of someone going, no, I think what you just said is sexist. And I don't know, that just strikes me as weak and and cowardly.
We are afraid of it. I'm terrified of that. I was raised so aggressively to not say sexist or racist things that and this is good in some ways, but like there's a filter at every level of things that I say where I'm like, hold up, reanalyze that real quick before it comes out. But I agree, it's reached a point in society, at least in my socioeconomic group, my group of friends, people have similar backgrounds, similar upbringing. It's overkill, and I think it's in a cycle with a lot of things. I actually want to address this particular case because the script about a disease that affects lots of people. I think I was reading about this yesterday. I think 5 million people in the U.S. have Alzheimer's. Very serious. I mean, it's a horrible disease. To say my grandmother had it. I only knew her when she was already sick, so I didn't have to see someone go through the progression into it. But I don't think that anyone would be upset if this was a drama about how hard it is to live with Alzheimer's or to know someone who has it or to go through the experience. But the fact that someone has, well, first of all, the script is not about it, so it's kind of silly. But had it been just a comedy about it, that actually is a way to put a positive spin on something that is horrible and make people enjoy it and still be exposed to it. And
there are no jokes in the script that are at the expense of Alzheimer's. Like, there is a character, Ronald Reagan, who has Alzheimer's, and then goofy political shit happens around him whilst he is having Alzheimer's. Like, there are no jokes that are, there are jokes, he's bumbling and it's funny, but there's never a joke that's like, ha ha, look at the piece of shit with Alzheimer's. Like, there's nothing distasteful in the whole script.
No, his character, and we've both seen a live performance of the show as well. So
yeah,
I certainly haven't read it. I would not.
Well, and so here's the thing about how that kicks back to what you're saying, how what you're saying kicks back to the outrage thing, which is when that default position is outrage, and you're able to do things like beat back the existence of this as a movie, you're avoiding the conversation that you are talking about, which is like Alzheimer's is a real thing that happens to people, and it sucks. But so is death, so is cancer, so is alcoholism. All things that I've dealt with in my family. But when somebody makes a joke about those things, I don't go, hey, now. Like, you have to process those things. That's part of life. And to have a default position where no one's allowed to talk about it because we're afraid of the outrage machine that you're talking about, that we're talking about, like, it's a disservice to humanity.
I'm also curious about this disease in particular because it's not one where I have to bite my lip to avoid making Alzheimer's disease jokes. But it's a really frustrating situation and a comedy that's well done, that's informative, that actually casts someone who may or may not have been sick at the time in a very positive, happy, effective way. It's really upsetting to think.
And I guess here's the thing, to try to wrap this up, since this is just a hit list topic, is I think, you've talked about the reality of being worried about that outrage and about the sort of inundation we've had with the concern for proceeding sensitively through our interactions. But our response to that pressure and that concern has been to start a podcast where we talk about things. It's been to think for a minute before we say something. It's been to do a little extra research.
I went and read all about Alzheimer's yesterday and statistics in the U.S. Not for this purpose. I was just curious.
So all I'm asking in terms of the outrage is, if you have that feeling, like, the first thing you want to do is go, oh, good Lord, no, this can't exist. Like, take a deep breath and see if there's substance to it. before you start firing off in a space that might torpedo a perfectly worthwhile. Yeah, it's an okay response.
It's really good to have a strong charged emotional response. It means that everything you've learned and everything you've become as a person is saying, hey, wait, something weird is happening here. You should investigate it. But that's what it says. Don't be a dick and just be outraged. Don't just argue with people for no reason. Hey, something doesn't seem right in the world to me. That's when you need to apply the most perspective to a situation. Right. It's not in day-to-day life with stuff that you're like familiar and comfortable with. It's the things that really strike you where you need to have extra reservedness, to make up a word maybe.
And just, same thing we always get to with this stuff, like try to be mindful of that, because the outrage machine it's hard to break down like what percentage of worthwhile conversation it might be shutting down. But I'm willing to bet it's a pretty high percentage. I feel scared just even talking about this, because people's reaction to this conversation is going to be, oh. But like, it's an important conversation to have. So I'm powering through that.
Me too.
And I thought for a long time before putting this on the hit list.
I was like, no way, man. I'll argue with you about that. We're not doing that one.
but I don't know. It's like it could be a project that facilitates a conversation about, like you said, Alzheimer's is not something you frequently talk about. It's not out there in the world. And so if it's handled the right way, if a comedy starts conversation that people want to talk about this thing that happens and how we're supposed to handle it as humans, is that not a worthwhile thing?
It's a fantastic thing.
Also, my grandfather doesn't have Alzheimer's, but he does have a form of dementia, and he does funny shit sometimes.
And that should be recognized.
It's
Enjoy
also
that.
Really
Enjoy
sad,
those moments,
Constantly sad.
And things can be sad and happy at the same time.
So I don't know. Just take a deep breath, y'all.
Yeah, enjoy a variety of emotions instead of just dwelling on the negative ones.
Right. Yeah, I don't
Zen.
Boom. We need one of those little, you need to get one of those little, used to have one of those meditation effects. Chimes. So we can go, bong.
We can open with a singing bowl. I really want a singing bowl, by the way. Those things do great. Or we could open, our opening could be us oming together.
I know what you're talking about when you say singing bowl, but in my head, I see that thing from Roger Rabbit where he pulls out the trumpet and it's just Harry Connick Jr. going, blah, 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 blah.
I was picturing Beauty and the Beast and the singing teapot, actually. But very similar.
Okay. That's the only one we planned. What else off the list is piques your interest?
I added smart lights yesterday just because I've been playing around with them.
Okay.
And I've uncovered some things
Philips
that are coming.
Hue or something? Or
yeah.
You have the LifeX ones, right?
Or the LifeX, yeah. I couldn't even think of the name yesterday. I was putting it down.
I had those. I have the Hue ones right now. I switched to Hue because you can control them with Siri.
I've noticed that yesterday in my research, so I will also be switching to Philips.
What are your thoughts on the smart bulbs?
Well, first, I just wanted to introduce them to people, knowing that probably some percentage of our listeners don't know what they are.
Yeah, sorry, I got excited and mowed through that one with my
that was mostly my goal too. Colored lighting and controlled lighting, I think, is really important for setting comfort levels in a home and an environment. And I mean, you go to nice restaurants and hotels, and one of the biggest features that people don't always necessarily pay attention to is what makes it seem so elegant is often the lighting. And so they're on the market now, all of these light bulbs that are very energy efficient, so they last for an extremely long time. So despite their high price point of $50 or $100, they'll last for 20 years if you don't break them. So they replace your light bulb, fit in a standard light bulb socket, connect to Wi-Fi, and you can control them from your phone and your smartphone. And they work fully dimmable from totally off to max brightness. And some of them work in full color spectrum. So not only can you adjust the harshness, the cold or warmth of a regular whitish light, but you can also do full colors like rainbow and filter through and effects. And I have a couple. I got some to check them out because I used to have a lot of different colored light bulbs in my room just to add effects when I'm just chilling and relaxing. And I kind of want to put more of them in my house. It seems
My first impulse as you started, now I have these bulbs. I love them. I have almost every socket I can possibly have filled with a smart light bulb I have full. When you started explaining that, though, my first impulse was to defend the idea of like colored lighting throughout your house. I feel like it's a thing. Like Emily, my wife, thinks it's silly when I want to set different colors in the rooms.
Right.
She's just not into it. And so I'm familiar personally with that impulse of like, oh, mood lighting. Oh, right. But then I was thinking like, you know, we're both photographers and I have done on a professional level video work. And even if your job is cameraman, most of what you're concerned about is the lighting.
Yeah.
Like people don't think about it, but so much of like more than 50% of what happens in a photograph or a video frame, film, TV, all that kind of stuff is the color of the light, the harshness of the shadows, all that kind of stuff, right? Like that's like 70% of it.
I would say 100% of photography is lighting because without light, you can't do photography.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But you also have composition. I was trying to preserve 10 to 30% for composition and motion.
Light is our most overwhelming sense for most people. People who have good vision, I think, at least it takes up the most brain power. It's the sense that we seem to be stimulated the most by. And being able to alter that a little bit in your environment is just kind of a fun thing.
And I've done some pretty cool, like I use blue light, which is more like the color of light in the sun. This is a hard one to explain without explaining too much stuff. So because of the atmosphere, the sun is different. You know how like the sunset is very distinctly red and gold and whatever. Mm-hmm. Sunrises are bluer. And because of basically how much atmosphere it's going through before it gets to you, light has a different color throughout the day. And that's true anywhere in the earth. And so we are very well calibrated to that shift. And if you want to biohack to an extent, you can use that. Like if you have a couple more hours of work to do and you're getting real tired, you can set these bulbs to a morning-like bluish color and actually wake your brain up a little bit. Because it goes, oh, it's morning? Okay, get my shit together. It doesn't last because eventually that bumps into other chemicals that are your end of the day, I've been awake for 10 hours chemicals. But it helps. And
what's the app on my computer that I use that does that too?
Flux. Flux turns down the temperature of your monitor throughout the day to match the light temperature, right? Which is what they call
which means it makes it more like red.
Temperature is a terrible term for it because it's actually just the color,
right?
From bluer to red.
Color's dictated by temperature of materials, but
true.
That's going too far.
Yep. Yeah, because now we're getting into that territory we were talking about with like looking at stars and shit and light bouncing off of whatever. But it's actually the color temperature spectrum is based on a certain type of metal. I don't remember what it is. But at different levels of heat, it turns different colors. And so they use that as a calibration mechanism for the scale by which people like photographers measure.
So do you like having Philips Hue light bulbs around?
I do. Not so much for the manipulation of color, which honestly is partially just that I have not put the time in to like put together themes that are fun for things. But they are really cool for, like, I can set them for timers so that the lights are just on when I get to my office in the morning. You can sync it up with your thermostat. I have a Nest thermostat. So, like, they can respond to when the thermostat is doing different things, which responds to my door lock. So if I wanted to, I could set up a whole cascade by which when I get home at night, thermostat turns on, lights turn on and are a certain color, things like that.
And you said you can use Siri now too, right?
And with the Philips ones, yeah, you can use Siri. It's a bit janky. I have to reset it occasionally, but you can say, turn off the lights, and it goes, okay, and then turns them off.
Can you tell it where? Can you be like, turn off the lights in my office?
That's the part where it's a bit janky. I can tell them, I can tell it for some reason, I can tell it to turn off the lights in my office, and it works. But every other room that I've labeled, it doesn't recognize. I don't know why.
Can you tell it to make your office blue?
I don't know. I haven't tried that. I
Interesting.
don't know. It's really just the thing of like Apple's got HomeKit, and that's how Siri hooks into these devices. And I think that interaction is still just not perfectly ironed out. But it's exciting because it's the first place in my life I've really felt like, computer.
Yeah.
Turn off the lights.
Yeah, I promised my girlfriend that she would have voice-controlled lights this week, so I hope I can figure it out.
There are some
I don't think she'll be
workarounds to
super
get
upset if she
work,
can't, but I will.
The only reason I own all of them, or the two different brands, is because my brother had 30 Philips bulbs from his old house, and he didn't have a place for them. And he had enough to replace all of my LifeX ones. So I was like, I'll take those. But if you want to buy a bunch of LifeX bulbs, I have like 10 of them.
I don't want. I want Philips. I'll buy your Philips light bulb.
LifeX's app is better though. I think those bulbs are better, but they can't hook to the Siri thing because Siri has a security standard where you have to have a separate hub. So the Hue bulbs talk to a separate hub I have hanging on the wall that then plugs into the router. LifeX talks directly to your router, which is better for being responsive, but violates whatever the security protocol for HomeKit is. I think they're working on a dongle that'll fix that, but I don't know if it's out yet.
Well, I'm always interested in another dongle. That's for sure.
But smart bulbs, I think they're worthwhile.
Cool.
The real thing, I think the best thing to take away from this is the justification for getting them is not all of those things so much as they're LED bulbs. They cost as much as an LED bulb, the $20 to $70, but they're going to last 20 years. So $1 a year is not so bad to pay on your light bulb.
Save you energy, and they end up being the same price. So, that is a good takeaway. Go get energy efficient light bulbs because it would make a huge, huge difference in the world.
And if you got to get them, you might as well get the ones you can turn on with your voice. Right?
You had a mischievous grin after saying that, like you didn't quite believe it, but I agree. It's true. Okay. Enough about pretty colored lights.
Pretty colored lights.
What else do we have on here? I know one I wanted to talk about, mostly because I want to talk to you about scheduling a time to try it out. It's a game called EVE Online.
I saw that. I couldn't remember if I put it on there or not, which makes it a perfect topic because it seems like something I would have put on there.
I almost emailed you and Woody and Connor last night. I think I got distracted, so I didn't end up sending an email, but...
Wait, first, can we talk about that game that we played?
Yeah, that's a good
I haven't checked
lead-in
to see if it still exists, but we played an iPad game a while back called Artemis, I think.
Yeah, Artemis. Good call.
Where one iPad is set up as a main server, and then all of the other iPads connect to it, and then the game is played as if each person's iPad is their instruments panel on a starship, and you all sit in the same room, and you go through an adventure where, like, Woody was weapons, Connor was navigation, I think I was captain.
You were captain.
And you were engineering, right? And you had to, with your voice, talk to the other people on the bridge about what was going on in their universe of responsibility.
There were like shields and thrusters and phasers, and like there were different panels for all of them. It was amazing.
And Captain sounds like it would be really cool, but it was actually sort of, compared to playing a video game, it was sort of uncomfortable.
It was like being a manager.
Because you just had to say, this bearing 3/4 impulse, and then someone else had to execute it, and you had to just watch this display. Like, as Captain, all you had was a monitor that kind of looked like the front monitor on Star Trek, which I want to talk about for a second. This is a complete diversion, but it only recently occurred to me that panel on which they see things out the front of the bridge on the Star Trek, on the Star Trek. I sound like my grandparents. The Star Trek is not a window.
I think it is a window on a lot of ships. It might have been on the original
screen,
ship.
like it's like a backup camera on your TV. It's a camera connected to a screen that makes you feel like you're looking at a window.
Totally. It was
Anyway.
augmented reality, I think.
So that game was really cool.
Good stuff.
Is EVE Online anything like that?
EVE Online, I think, is like a single player controls his or her stuff,
Okay.
but it's a space adventure, massive multiplayer online game. Is that right?
MMORPG.
Yes. And I watched the video I've seen it occasionally for the last couple of years. I'll like catch a video of it once in a while. But it's one of those games that has its own economy in game, like $1 billion economy, and like people make their living in it. And I watched the video on their main page, and just the excitement watching people like go into battle in this game as like teams of people running starships just was blowing my mind. I wanted to play it really badly. So although I don't play video games very frequently, if ever, I wish I did. I wish there was a whole separate entity of me that allowed me to just sit and play video games because they look amazing.
This conversation makes me recall my efforts to get you on board with World of Warcraft.
We tried.
Can you explain to me why that failed?
What
What did you not see in World of Warcraft? That my guess it was all the running. You spend easily 60% of your time in game traveling to another place to do it.
You probably spend 99% of your time traveling between stars in EVE Online, so it might be even more boring. Who knows?
Are really far apart.
No, all the ships had warp capability, and we're just traveling where they wanted really quickly.
That's good.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what I wanted to actually talk about in the game was more some of the bigger aspects of those types of games, but maybe that's a better topic for an actual full cast because there's a lot to go into.
Too broad? Guests?
Yeah.
Should we get guests for that?
We need some MMORPG experts.
Right. That's my problem.
Like
I feel
Lynn,
like I don't.
maybe.
I had a couple of years of playing too much World of Warcraft, but that's the extent of my experience.
Yeah, my last serious game was Diablo 2, which I think was circa 1999, maybe 2000.
Something like that. Good game,
It's sad. I'm so old. I've missed decades of video games.
But you know, maybe a good place to wrap up the hit list is with a call to our listeners.
Yeah.
What do you think of EVE Online? It piqued Brian's interest.
Play more video games before it's too late.
And I'm down for a role-playing game. Should we try it out? What do we do? How do we?
I assume we download it, install it, try to set it up, and get frustrated and not
I feel
play.
like we're flailing.
We probably end it, is how we save it. I like that you refer to it as a bit.
No, I like, honestly, not to try to get to the broad thing that you are talking about, but we have done a full episode on role-playing games.
Oh, that's true. We did.
That ended with us asking, like, what's out there, right? I think a lot of those people have taken it to the online space. It's become World of Warcraft. It's become EVE Online.
Yeah. Those games are truly interactive and social.
And massive.
You're on headsets the whole time.
It's in the name.
For sure.
Which is funny because I have another hit list thing on here and I wanted to bring it up with Mike, but there was no space for it. It was esports and like League of Legends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is a separate cast. This is a teaser for a separate cast about virtual reality, about esports, about alternate role-playing games. So bone up on that, and you'll be ready the next time we do the thing. Oh, that does not feel like a good place to end. But I got nothing better. So let's get out of here.
Yeah, time to go.
Good stuff. Thanks for sticking around for another one. And as usual, hit us up on the socials, this and that's and other things. hello@zengineeringpodcast.com.
Stars. Give us all your stars on Apple.
I don't know if they're bots or real people, but thank you to anyone who has checked out stuff.zengineeringpodcast.com, where we sell gear. We haven't sold anything, but we're getting hits according to Google Analytics. I don't know how that's happening.
Like bots are cool. They're almost people. They'll be people soon.
I like bots. But keep it up. Reach out. Say hey.
Thanks everybody
for sticking around. I'm Adam.
Keep it real tight. I'm Brian. Been a few weeks. I'm crusty too because I was too tired to shower yesterday, so I'm still covered in sand.
Everything itches.
Yeah.